Good evening, and welcome to tonight's free-range conversation with American Farmland Trust. My name is John Piotti, AFT's president. We'll begin in just a moment, and we're pleased that you can join us tonight. These are trying times, unprecedented times, and I'm humbled that you'll share your time with us here at AFT. Before we begin, a few quick points to make. Right now, we're dialing out to thousands of AFT members across the country, so just stay on the line and we'll be diving into our conversation very soon. These free-range conversations give you the opportunity to ask questions. If you want to ask a question, just press 0 at any time. Just press 0. You'll be connected to a member of our staff who will talk to you and jot down the question and put it up on a screen here so we can take your call later in the program. We've always done this out of our offices in D.C. These are different times, so we're doing it. I'm in Maine here, and my daughter is my technical assistant, so it's a little different. If you've just joined us, good evening and welcome to tonight's free-range conversation. My name's John Piotti, AFT's president, and I'm here tonight with some special guests. My name is John Piotti. As I said, we're going to begin in just a minute. We're excited to have you. I just want to make a point up front that we're reaching out right now, dialing out to thousands of members across the country. So just stay on the line, and once the numbers are up and people are connected, we will begin. And if you have a question to ask at any point, press 0. If a question you know about now that you think you're going to want to ask later in the evening, press 0 at any time. You'll be connected to a member of our staff. They'll record your question. It will be here on our screen, and we can bring you on as needed. I'm having some technical problems already. My daughter is diving into how. Here we are. Okay. So I think we're going to get started. We have a number of people on the call. We have a few more who are joining, but I think we'll have, actually I'm looking at the numbers right now, and we're at almost 500 people who have joined the call. We're going to give it just another few minutes to see if that number goes up a little higher, and we will begin very soon. So I'll just remind you in the interim that if you have a question, press 0, and we'll record it, and we'll try to take as many questions as we can during the call. We have 3 guests tonight, and I'm going to chat briefly with 2 of them. They're both farmers who are experiencing some of the challenges that are coming with the pandemic. And then I'm going to talk with a long-term AFT staffer, Julia Friedgood, who has a lot of experience with food system issues and planning for ag and the like. Before I get into any of that, though, I want to talk about a big decision that AFT made this last week and that we went public on just yesterday. We have launched a special fund to help support farmers who are facing financial hardship because of this pandemic. And I'm going to just read a little bit of information from our press release on this so you know what's going on. All farmers right now are severely and seriously impacted by market disruptions caused by the pandemic. Some of them are losing their primary markets because people aren't eating in restaurants or shopping at farmers markets. Now, others maybe aren't being hard hit now, but we suspect that they will not be able to maintain an adequate source of farm labor in the future, including migrant labor that's now so essential for many crops. And still other farmers are going to be devastated in the future by likely disruptions in trade. But at this time, we feel that those farmers and ranchers who directly market to consumers are being impacted most drastically. And in fact, a recent study suggests that up to $1.3 billion in local food system revenue may be lost during just the months of March and May. $1.3 billion. Some of that is broader economic activity, but the estimates are that $700 million will be lost to farmers operating in this space. And that was really a lot of the driving force behind this fund. Now, during the initial application round, which will go from now through April 23rd, roughly a month, eligible producers can apply for grants of $1,000. And we know the need is great, and we hope to provide grants for all in need. And if we have enough donations, we'll be able to support farmers with larger grants. We do hope that there will be additional rounds of funding because the need across agriculture is so great. But whether American Farmland Trust can support future rounds or not will all depend on the donations we receive. We're making a commitment that 100% of every dollar we receive go directly to farmers and ranchers. We'll be covering all administrative or advertising costs or anything else we do completely on our own. So that's the story. It's big news for us. This is a major step. We do it with some risk because we're saying to farmers we want to help, but it all depends on people helping us with donations. So we really hope that our donors will come through. Now, we just launched this 24 hours ago, and we have already raised $35,000, about $10,000 from individuals, and a big chunk of $25,000 from a single company, Farmland Foods. Thank you, Farmland Foods, for your leadership. It's great. Now, $35,000 is not a bad start, but we clearly need much more. We would need $1 million just to help 1,000 farmers with a $1,000 check, and that's possible. At $35,000 a day over a period of a month, that exceeds $1 million, but we do need to move faster than that, and we hope to do more than that. Now, I have on the phone with me tonight two farmers who do direct market farming, and that is where we are initially targeting our efforts. All farmers, as I said before, are going to be challenged, but those farmers who, say, are selling to restaurants or selling at farmers markets, if those farmers markets are closed, they're seeing right now some of the worst impacts. And if we have future rounds of funding, we can do more. But we're targeting those folks initially. And I have on the phone tonight with me two folks in the space. The first is Billy from Virginia, and then I have Zach from New York. I'm going to start with Billy. So, Billy, you're on the line. Why don't you make sure you're off mute? Billy, you're a livestock farmer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your operation, and then I'll ask you some questions about what's going on right now. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, thank you, John. We have been farming cattle since about 1985. We started with a seed group of registered polled Herefords, and we've done some different things throughout the years as far as, taking them to just local sales here in Madison, and we start marketing the beef probably around 90, and right now we're currently marketing our beef as a natural, origin verified. All the animals are born and raised on our farm.
Great.
In addition to that, we found a need for people looking for non-GMO grain-finished cattle, so we're doing that. We never put them in a feedlot. They're in a 30-acre pasture field that have a feed bunker there that they can free choice as they wish. So we'd like to say they're real happy cattle. There are our farms located right on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains here. So.
And I have not been to your farm, but you are part of an effort that AFT is undertaking in Rappahannock County and surrounding counties, and I've met some of your farmers from that area who are part of this project, as you are, and it's a beautiful part of the world, and you guys are doing some great work. But I know you've had some challenges. You sell mostly to restaurants, and your market has dried up. Tell us about that.
It's absolutely right, John. The D.C. market and some of the surrounding areas, well, just all throughout the country, all restaurants have pretty much shut down. They do some takeout, but for most part, the larger restaurants that can take whole beef, that's the way we sell it, so they can utilize all the different parts. They're unable to take it, so we have, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 on feed now that we're trying to scratch around and find a home for. So,
is it fair to say that your market has completely dried up, or is there still something out there?
Well, what I'm trying to do is maybe go to more retail, which, there are some gourmet meat shops that we do sell to, but for us to be sustainable, I had a handful of customers instead of, 30 or 40. Right. So I'm out there looking for those customers. Everybody's going to eat. They're not eating in restaurants that are closed now, so they are buying from, meat shops and retail stores. So.
And what you've just described, Billy, is what I'm hearing from a lot of farmers in your situation. I mean, you have basically lost all of your current market, but rather than being too down on that, you're saying, okay, what can I do to get into the markets that might still be there? And I just think it's a great testament to the spirit and resilience of you and many other farmers. You're trying to figure it out. And tell me, I guess I'd be curious, we're talking about this grant program. It's $1,000. That's not a lot of money. But I was told, and hopefully I was told right, that you have a use for it that you think will help you expand your market opportunities. What are you going to do with that money if we're lucky enough to raise enough and you're lucky enough to get a small grant?
Well, I've been behind the eight ball, with direct marketing this beef through maybe a home store on the website, creating a website that people can, actually get on, purchase the meat. I've kind of done things old school, and I've been partners with restaurants for 20 plus years, and that has worked well for us. But not expecting something like this to hit us. There is a retail avenue, and that seems to be moving quite well, and that's what I'm kind of moving towards at this point. So I'd probably use that money to develop a website and a home store that people could actually purchase our beef through that.
And just to drive home the point for our listeners, when sometimes I tell people that we're creating this fund, and they say, well, what good does $1,000 do? If they're losing tens of thousands of dollars worth of sales, what good would $1,000 do? And my response is, farmers are creative and innovative, but they usually don't have much cash lying around. So a little money will allow them to go down another path that may open up new doors. And that's exactly what you've just described, Billy. You're going to use this money to see if you can get in some direct sale markets and weather the storm with restaurants. And I applaud you for that. I'm going to quickly, because we don't have a lot of time tonight, turn it over to Zach in a minute. But any last comment from us? For us, I should say.
Okay. John, like you said, we are real resilient. We suffer through droughts and wet, and we do it for the love of farming. And money doesn't really drive, I'd say 100% of us real farmers, but the love for farming does, and I do have a positive outlook that it will make us stronger by the end of the day, going through this little rough road that we're traveling right now.
Well, you're an inspiration to all of us, Billy, and I wish you and your family well. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, John.
Zach, you can come off mute now and join the conversation. I am getting a message. I told you we're a little technically challenged here today. We're not doing it out of our offices in D.C. But just a reminder before I bring Zach on that if anyone has any questions about the fund, about what AFT is going down this path, about some of the challenges facing farming, please, please, please press 0. Get your question in the queue. We really want to be answering your questions later this evening. So with that reminder, I want to go to you, Zach. You're the president of the Troy Waterfront Farmers Market, and I will just say that you are to be congratulated. You won the AFT's Farmers Market Celebration Award as the best farmers market in the country this past year, and yet you're having challenges. Mm-hmm. Your market is now closed, and I think you have some worries about the farmers in your market and the long-term impact. So tell us a little bit about what you see and your farmer as well. So you're not just a market coordinator, you're an active farmer and the president of the farmers market. Tell us what you're seeing and what some of your concerns are.
Yeah, thanks, John, and I appreciate being on here and getting a chance to speak. Right, I'm also a farmer here in upstate New York. A lot of folks know that New York City is being considered an epicenter of the coronavirus right now. So there's a lot of concern upstate. A lot of our farmers here make their living in New York City. And the big first thing we saw was the market itself was shut down by our county authorities, our Department of Health, as a public health concern. They wanted to talk with us more in the future, but they were concerned about our city also denied any permit period of time and are still doing so. So we've been off for about 2 weeks now. The second thing is most of the restaurants around here have either closed or have moved to delivery and pickup at the restaurants. And I think it's something like 10% of their original sales, but it's just significantly reduced. So any farmers selling into there are really suffering.
6%, Zach?
Oh, I think maybe 10%. It varies from business to business. A lot of them have just shut their doors completely.
Yeah. Wow. So I know one of the things that you are trying to do is convince the county, and ultimately it might involve convincing the state as well, that farmers markets are an important source of food, just like grocery stores. California, I know, the governor came out saying that farmers markets should stay open during this pandemic for that very reason. Any comments on that? Are you getting traction with that argument? Are you hopeful? And is there anything we can do to help you?
Sure. Our governor has also been really supportive and came out and considered farmers market an essential service. And then unfortunately, a couple of days ago, shared a picture of a farmer's market saying this is too much or not enough social distancing. So we immediately were worried about that. But he's generally been supportive. We still have a lot of levels of bureaucracy above us, and any of those folks that don't want to see that or are concerned right now about the spread of the coronavirus are basically saying this isn't a good idea. We're in a different place than a lot of markets. Even though we're based in a small city of 50,000, we tend to be regionally pulling in a lot of people. And I think that there's a view that maybe makes us a little bit higher risk because we have people even calling us now from all over the region wanting to come in and go to our market and don't understand why it's not going. So we are working with the health department and the city to say, what can we do that is considered safe and reasonable and continue our operations, even if it doesn't look the same as we used to, because they do seem to recognize the value of the farmers market but I think they want to see it look less sociable, I guess.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And we do a lot of AFT does a lot of policy work in New York, and if you haven't yet, I will connect you to some of our policy people after this call. It is an important issue to elevate and try to advance this broader understanding of the importance of markets at this time. But I know, what you said about the farmers in your market having such reduced sales, it's just another indication of the usefulness of this fund. I can't thank you enough, Zach, for the work you do, not only as a farmer, but creating an amazing market and in Troy. So thank you for all you do.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Before I turn to our guests, I just want to be very blunt. I want to encourage all of you about making a gift to this Farmer Relief Fund. And you can go right now while we're still on the phone to AFT's website. You can either Google American Farmland Trust, or you can put in www.farmland.org, and that brings you right to our homepage. And if you scroll down on our homepage, the first thing that is there is information on the Farmer Relief Fund. So please, during this call or immediately thereafter, please go and be as generous as you can be. I am here with Julia Friedgood, who leads several initiatives at AFT and is also one of the very few members of staff who hold that special additional title of Senior Advisor. She is a national expert in food systems and in issues of good community planning around agriculture. Julia, it's great to have you here tonight.
Great to be here, John.
I hope you have questions for Julia and me tonight. So again, just a reminder, push 0 at any time and you'll be connected into the queue. Julia, I'm curious, just for starters, if you have any reactions to what you heard from Billy and Zach. As someone who's worked with farmers for many years, what's running through your head?
Well, I guess first, I'm just always so impressed by how adaptable and the ingenuity of farmers and ranchers. It's sort of as you said, their spirit and their resiliency, even in times like these of great uncertainty. Whether it's like Billy, who's creating a new website or reaching out to grocery stores to find alternative markets, or, I see a lot of people around me in Western Mass figuring out things like home delivery. Sort of all across the country, I see local farmers and ranchers stepping up to serve their communities in new and different ways, and not being kind of overwhelmed by the situation, which is amazing. But at the same time, it just reminds me of how important our local farmers are. They really are essential services, employees, and we really need to take them seriously that way, but at the same time recognize just how vulnerable and unprotected they are, especially, our sort of direct marketing and local food farmers who maybe don't have crop insurance and other safety nets, and our policies that lead sort of big ag and favor sort of commodity agriculture, which of course is very important, but often leave out our local food producers, and things like needing affordable health insurance. So me, farmers are my local heroes, and we should never forget their role growing our food and serving our communities.
Yeah, well said, Julia. You've hinted at what my next question is going to be. We pride ourselves at AFT on taking sort of this holistic approach to agriculture, seeing the big picture. But I'll be honest, some folks at AFT are natural system thinkers. I'd put you high on that list. But it's hard. It's hard to think this way. What do we mean, Julia, when we say food systems, and why is that so particularly relevant right now?
Well, that's a great question, John. I get asked that a lot. So when I talk about food systems, and I hope I'm reflecting all of AFT, I mean the entire soil-to-soil life cycle of food. So that can be a global, domestic, regional, local, whatever. We depend on all these food systems sort of nested together like matryoshka dolls. But they start with stewarding the land and producing the food, and then the system moves through all the supply chain connections of processing, distributing, acquiring, consuming, and ultimately disposing of food waste. And so the system includes all the markets, the technologies, the policies, the regulations, all those things that shape and influence how food moves from field to fork, the compost pile, and then back again. One hopes in a way that ensures access and availability to all community members.
Right, which is exactly, of course, what people are talking about now, access to food, and worried that maybe we're not going to have access to food like we have in the past. People will say when I tell them about this fund, they'll say, well, sure, farmers are going to be hurt by the pandemic, but so are all businesses. And they might also say that this is principally a public health crisis about life and death. It's a hell of a lot bigger than agriculture. Now you have this ag lens, you have this food system lens. When you wear that, how do you think about this crisis? Where do you see the links to farming and agriculture?
I guess to me this is life and death, right? What's more essential to human life than healthy food or clean drinking water? We need agriculture, especially regenerative agriculture, to survive. And not only to survive this and related health crises, but the climate crisis as well. My son is an emergency planner, right? And so he's handling a lot of the triage around Western Massachusetts around the pandemic. And just as we need emergency responders and medical personnel, now more than ever we need to see our farmers and ranchers as essential service providers. We need that food, and it's really heartening to me that in their emergency orders, California counties have allowed farmers markets to keep operating right along with grocery stores. And you mentioned that earlier, but I think that's so important. Every state should be working to support their farmers and ranchers to bolster food production right now, to figure out safe delivery mechanisms so that everybody who's under a stay-at-home order has access to fresh as well as stored and packaged food. And not just produce, but dairy, eggs, and meat as well. I mean, to me, this is a wake-up call. We really need to include agriculture and food systems in all our emergency management plans and give farmers and ranchers the support they need to keep operating through this and other crises to ensure a stable and accessible food supply.
Yeah, amen, brother. I couldn't agree with you more. I have a tendency of maybe oversimplifying some of the issues in agriculture, but it's important to help crystallize it for people. And sometimes I summarize some of agriculture's major challenges as first, the loss of irreplaceable farmland, and second, the loss of topsoil and organic matter that threatens our ability to use that remaining land to both sustainably grow our food and provide eventual environmental services. And then the third piece is this demographic reality, which is making it really hard. It's a huge challenge out there to find all of the new farmers that we're going to need. So my question, this is a big question, my question is, this current crisis, what impact, if any, do you feel this current crisis is going to have on these big challenges in agriculture?
Well, you never ask easy questions, John. So I'd say, first of all, it's just hard to predict what's going to happen and how long this is going to go on for. So I would hope it's not going to have a huge impact on farming practices. In terms of developing farmland, I'd say all bets are off, and it probably depends on how long this goes on and how farmers are affected. During the Great Recession, development pressure fell off dramatically. It's been picking up a lot in the last few years. So it's not really clear to me if speculators are going to take advantage of this downturn to buy up a bunch of land, or if people will just hold on to their land, in hopes that this is a short economic shock and will recover quickly. I don't know. But you talk a lot about sort of land practices and people, and to me this crisis is really a crisis for people. And the clear and present danger is to family farmers,
right.
Especially the small and mid-sized commercial farmers and ranchers who rely on agriculture to support their households. From what I'm hearing already, it's especially threatening to young beginning farmers, new generation farmers and ranchers who maybe don't have that much experience yet, less than 10 years of experience on a farm.
Yeah.
And probably don't have a lot of financial reserves to get them through a sustained downturn.
Right.
But they're our future, and they're especially vulnerable to these kinds of economic disruptions. And if they go out of business, it's going to take a long time to replace them.
Yeah.
So with 40% of, American farmland owned by people age 65 and older, we really can't afford to wait. We really need to do everything we can to help them and other farmers get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so the callers know, Julia's really headed up AFT's efforts on new generation farmers. We do a lot in this space, but this just points out how we need to do so much more. And it's interesting. A lot of these young farmers, the market opportunities that have allowed them to get into farming have often been these direct market opportunities, right? They are in a situation where they can immediately have a really large farm that maybe can more easily sell to commodity markets or even wholesale markets. So a lot of these direct sales where problems are happening to these next generation, new generation farmers. So it's almost a double hit in some ways. They're the farmers we really need, and they are the ones that are being most harmed by the current crisis. Anyway, I want to turn over to some of the callers' questions. So we've got several who have called in. I'm going to start with Jean from Georgia. I hope you're ready to speak. We're going to let you speak. And Jean, what do you have to say? You have a question for us?
I do. I mentioned to the young woman earlier about the money, the stimulus package that President Trump supported for the farmers. How will they be affected with that package, and when will they be have an opportunity to take advantage of financial help?
That's a great question, Jean. I just got word literally minutes before this call began that the package that passed, at least in the Senate, I don't know if it's passed the House yet. You guys might. You're more on top of this news than I am. But what I do know that you may not is that package did include a number of things for farmers, including several of them that AFT worked very hard with our friends on the Hill, both Democrat and Republican, to push for. So there will be some relief and support for farmers, as there will be for other businesses in the stimulus package. But I want to be really clear, that is nothing that's going to happen immediately. And even though, when the government talks about numbers, they throw around billions, and, we're talking about, hundreds of thousands or maybe $1 million that we can provide to farmers. But it's just as important that we support this fund and make it possible. It's going to provide additional support to some of those farmers that are most in need and do it directly and almost immediately. But it is great news that the stimulus package did not ignore agriculture, and I give a shout out to the folks on AFT's policy team and many others from some of the partner organizations we work with who really pushed and stressed that point, that farming and our food supply is so critical and needs to be front and center. So great to hear that the stimulus package is going to help farmers, but they need everything we can do for them. So no reason to take the foot off the accelerator at AFT about having us raise as large a fund as we can. I have a caller. There's no name, but it's a caller from New Jersey. I think had a question, a member of a CSA who had a question. I wish I had your name so I could say hello to you, but I don't. Are you there?
Yes, hi. My name's Gail, and I'm actually in Philadelphia, but it is a New Jersey call.
Okay.
A New Jersey number. So I'm a member of a CSA in Philadelphia, have been for many years, and we do our pickups at one of our local, farmers markets on a Saturday, let's say, is when they come to our area. So we're talking about, for the most part, very small farmers who rely on CSAs, some of them that have gotten a little bigger, the restaurant trade, which of course everything's closed in Philadelphia in terms of that. My question anyway is, it's two-part. One is how you would let a farmer know how to apply for this if they indeed did need it.
Yep.
And number two is a little different. So I'm suspecting I'm not alone on this call with over 500 people, that I'm someone who can donate very, very, very little. Right. However, I was wondering if there was any plan in mind to start maybe phone banking or something like that, which I would be happy to do, to reach out to people to try to get them to donate.
Yeah, two great questions. The one on applying is pretty simple. You go to our website, and the same link right on the home page that will help you make a donation also has information on how to apply. And we've kept the application pretty simple. All the requirements are written right there on the website now. I think the application does not go live until tomorrow, but the information is there, and we'll be accepting applications for the first round from tomorrow through April 23rd. Your question about other ways to help, you are spot on. The best way to help, if you can't, or in addition to making a financial contribution, is to spread the word. So you or anyone is very welcome to email me. So my email address is the letter J and then my last name, Piotti. So it's JPIOTTI @farmland.org. And if you forget that, you can email any member of staff. You can find our names on the website. But email me, if you can remember that, jpiotti@farmland.org, and I will send you out a one-pager that's all ready with information for you to circulate yourself by email. You'll then be armed with information. You can make phone calls if you wish. If you're one of those people who is active on social media like Facebook, we can give you information on how to put a link in there. Follow AFT on our social media, and then you can amplify that to your friends. So that is a great question, Gail, and I would encourage everyone on this call. And we're up to about over 1,100 people on the call right now, so it's been great. I think it's one of our largest turnouts for one of these calls. So I would encourage everyone on our call to do exactly what Jean is offering to do, which is spread the word. And speaking of that, if you do have questions, press 0, and we will connect you in. And I'm gonna find one of these, Julia. Don't worry, there's gonna be one in here that is gonna be a great one for you. So let's see. Sure, let's go to Alan in Vermont. Alan, do you have a question?
Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I have more of a comment or a possibility other people can use after hearing about the Troy Farmers Market being closed.
Yeah.
Our farmers market here in Bennington, Vermont, which is about 45 miles east of Troy.
Yep.
It's indoors twice a month during the winter, but within 10 days, our board put together an online order form for all the vendors that wanted to participate, and our customers came in alphabetically in their cars into a parking lot, and they were handed their order or put in the back seat or put it in their trunk, wherever they wanted it. And some vendors had a very, very good day. So our farmers got to sell produce, our customers got the food they wanted, and it was a win-win for everyone involved.
Yep, that's great. I appreciate that comment a lot. It might be helpful to some people listening on the call. Julia, I'm going to give you a chance to comment on this because you said earlier you were just so impressed by how farmers are resourceful and resilient. And indeed, we heard Billy earlier tonight say, here's a guy where he's lost most of his market, and yet he's thinking of, is there another way I can get my product to another market? And didn't know if you had any responses for that last caller. He was just making a comment, but anything you want to say that might speak to this issue of how farmers can or how farmers do frequently respond to creatively to these kind of opportunities?
Well, I loved his example of sort of creating a way to continue to do what they've been doing before, but do it in a way that, protects that social distancing. The other ideas that I've heard of are people who really are turning to kind of trying to do kind of virtual, almost like a virtual co-op where they're collecting food from local farmers and creating a website where you can make an order and then they will do home delivery so that you can, it's almost like a CSA, but it's a completely modern technology-driven way. And so I just think these innovations and the creativity that people are using to respond to this epidemic and to make sure that people really do have access to fresh and healthy food, and by that I include meat and dairy and everything else as well as produce. But I know that, for me, I'm getting really tired of the rice and pasta on the back of my shelves. So it's really great to hear how farmers and the people who support the farmers are stepping up to make sure that we can have these new delivery mechanisms.
Yeah. It always amazes me how resilient and creative and imaginative farmers can be when they have the chance. And sometimes they need a little help, often a little money because their margins are so tight. But a little bit of money with no strings attached, which is what we're talking about with this grant program, can often open up huge possibilities. Let's go to our next caller. I've got Dominic. I think you're a farmer in Western Mass, if I'm not mistaken. You there, Dominic?
Yes, I am. Thanks very much for taking my call. I am a farmer in Western Mass. I've been farming organically here for about 30 years, and all of my sales are direct marketing from the farm and also at farmers markets. And this has been a pretty scary time for us. I want to second Julia's mention of how resilient and creative, and your comment just now about how creative farmers are. Indeed, a huge part of our life is adjusting and readjusting to all sorts of inputs from every direction and reprioritizing on a constant basis everything from the weather changing from day to day to customers showing up and needing to spend time with them and readjust what other things we're up to. And I want to say that I'm participating in a farmers market, a winter farmers market in New York State that is obviously held indoors during the winter. We were threatened with closure last week, obviously because of everything that's going on, having people in a confined space. Luckily, it was a fine day, so we were able to quickly adjust and move outdoors. and it became very clear by the amount of business that we did on that one day that we are an essential service, that people really do have to have food, and certainly when faced with the choice of going into a crowded supermarket to buy food and finding that the shelves are empty, to being able to shop out of doors in the open air. Certainly farmers markets do need to stay open. So I want to, second that mention also. But I would like to say I'm super grateful to hear that ATF has stepped up to the plate and is offering assistance to small farmers that direct market like we do, particularly because farmers that direct market are, by definition, small farms, small local farms.
Yep.
And those small local farms tend not to have the ability to apply for and take advantage of big subsidies and USDA and other government monies because of the cumbersome system that entails. But in a situation like this, where we're faced with all sorts of problems, John, you asked the question a little while ago about to Julie about the what the food system represents, and what we're looking at this point is not only the producers but all the transportation and handling in an outsized food system.
Thanks, Dominic. I'm not sure what happened there, but I think we get your point, and they were excellent points. And I just wanted to build off of what you said about farmers that we are targeting are not the farmers that are generally in the queue or in the system for federal subsidies. And I say that with a little hesitancy. That's true, and that's part of the reason why we've oriented the fund towards it. But what some people think is that there are a lot of farmers who get huge subsidies and get rich off it, and that's not true either. There are people who make out with the subsidies, but they're seldom the farmers. They're usually the folks who are selling the farmers seeds or inputs or things like that. But we made a special point. Part of the reason we focused the fund on this group is the need was great, and they are not a group that is in a situation to get some of the larger supports that the federal government provides. Julie, any comment there?
No, I would just ditto what you said. Yeah.
Before we move on to another question, I just want to two reminders. One, if you have a question, push 0. There's several people in the queue, but we might get you. And second, I just want to remind you how important it is for you to consider a gift to this Farmer Relief Fund. I'll stress again that 100% of your gift will go to farmers. You can go to our website, American Farmland Trust, just Google American Farmland Trust, or go to www.farmland.org. And right there on the home page, scroll down a little bit, you will find information on our Farmer Relief Fund. So let's go. Let's see. My daughter is pointing at something, and I need to read it. She's telling me what to do in a way that I'm not quite following, so give me a chance. We've had a question from an unknown caller from an unknown place. Okay, so I'm just going to read the question and provide an answer. Can AFT provide support to aggregators for purchasing from small-scale growers? And great question. We are not at this point opening the fund to aggregators. We may at some point do that. We feel that this could be relatively small. Even if we raise $1 million, that's probably only going to help 1,000 farmers with a $1,000 check. But this could get bigger, and who knows? Maybe we'll have a few corporations write large checks. Maybe this will become the hottest thing on the internet. Maybe this will break all the social media records, and we'll raise more money. And if that's the case, we will definitely open this up to other parties. But we're really not in a position to do that now. We want to focus on farmers, and we want to focus on those farmers who are experiencing the greatest distress right now, which are these direct market farmers who have basically, because of the pandemic, lost their markets. So with that, let's see if there are any other calls we can go to. We have Patricia in Massachusetts. Patricia, what's your question?
Oh, good evening. I'm calling from Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Is the AFT planning any guidelines for farmers markets and best practices for farms attending farmers markets at a time of social distancing and extra safety precautions?
We are not. There is a farmers market coalition that we work actively with, and I think they've been quite active in the space. We're not the trade association for farmers markets. We do run the annual farmers market celebration, but there are other players who are filling that role. So no, we are not. But what we're doing is fighting for farmers markets in federal legislation and creating this fund. And then, as I mentioned, we do this annual celebration of farmers markets as a way of sort of elevating their importance to our economy. They're really important. And Julia, you may want to comment on this, but the farmers markets are often the vehicle by which new farmers get into the business. It's a market opportunity that you can get involved with relatively few acres of land. You learn a lot from doing it. You learn how to market. You learn what your customer base wants. So between Julia and I bet over the years we've worked with hundreds of new farmers who have gotten started through farmers markets. So they're great for the community. They're great also for farmers. They in the Northeast in particular, farmers markets have really been the engine that's propelled a lot of the rejuvenation in agriculture that we've seen. Any comments on that, Julia?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. They are a great point of entry for new and beginning farmers. A lot of people will then grow and diversify their markets from farmers markets. Some people actually are able to there are certain markets that you make so much money that you can just stick to doing farmers markets. So they're really great for that, but they're also great at just helping the public come into contact with their local farmers and learn more about agriculture. So they play a really great role sort of in supporting the ag economy locally, as well as supporting people entering agriculture and people who are succeeding in agriculture.
Yeah, excellent. I'm not going to ask any other questions because we're winding down. I want to give Julia a chance for a last comment or two, and I also want to say a couple words myself. I have some parting thoughts that I think you might find of real interest. I do want to remind people of the website, www.farmland.org, or just Google American Farmland Trust. With that, I'm going to see if, Julia, do you have any final thoughts or comments before some of my closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, these are pretty scary times, and as I think you said at the beginning, they're sort of unprecedented. I don't think any of us has been sort of forced into this, almost like a quarantine situation, even, for those of us who are fortunate enough to be healthy through this. But I think it also points to several things. One is what we've been talking about sort of throughout this call about sort of spirit and resiliency. And another one is really about that role of our farmers and ranchers as being essential service providers. And I think that gets lost a lot, and these are times for us to remember that, and to make sure that we take care of our food system so that we actually have sort of resiliency and actually to some extent some redundancy in the food system so that we can weather these kinds of shocks. I feel very grateful to be in Western Mass, where I can walk down the road and still, buy eggs and meat from a local farmer, and where people are doing delivery, and where that idea of a local food system is really sort of baked into our community and our economy. And I hope that concept spreads everywhere throughout the country so that this crisis ends up resulting in something that's really positive and beneficial for communities once we get through this really scary time that we're in right now.
Wow, that's well said. I don't usually in these calls ask for money, but I have been tonight, and I felt a little awkward about it because I know that we are all a little worried about money right now. But some of us, unlike Billy and Zach, given our professions, maybe are in a slightly more secure place. And so my message is to help where you can. And I'm sitting here tonight with my daughter, Anna, who's helped me out. And she's someone sort of in that position and has her own story to tell. So I'm going to let Anna say a couple words here.
So, hi everyone. Yes, I'm Anna Piotti, and I'm a PhD student whose stipend comes from teaching undergraduate courses. And my university has transitioned to remote learning, so I'm still teaching those courses, so I still have that stipend. And the money that has been promised to me that will come for the government, I don't need that. I want it to go and put it somewhere that really helps. So I will be donating the money to this organization.
Well, thanks, Anna. You can see why I'm proud of her. I did not put her up to that. I promised that when she heard that we were creating this fund, she said, I don't need this money the government's going to give me. And maybe a few of you are in that situation and can do that with whatever stimulus check you get or with a portion of it. I'm going to wrap up tonight by just reading a portion of a message that I wrote to members of my staff, AFT staff, about 100 strong, a week ago. Here's what I wrote. I fully understand that this is an enormously challenging time for all staff, but I also feel that this is a time when AFT has to step up its game. To my mind, one of the key issues we are facing with the coronavirus pandemic is how we deal with major disruptions that we are unprepared for. And in saying that, I have just articulated a big part of American Farmland Trust's reason to be, which is to transform agriculture while we have a chance, to minimize or hopefully avoid the catastrophic disruptions that will occur if we don't get farming right and soon. I don't mean to sound melodramatic. I'm earnest. This is how I see it. AFT's work focuses on critical issues that need to be solved to avoid future catastrophes. The situation the world now finds itself in is a testament to the value and necessity of AFT's work. When I wrote that, I was not thinking about this Farm Relief Fund, but several members of my staff were already talking and plotting, as they do, about how they could, here and now, make a difference. Yes, AFT's work is about the future, as I just articulated in that reading. But it's also about the present. And within a period of about 72 hours, my staff had created out of nothing this Farm Relief Fund. I'm proud of their efforts, but they mean nothing if we don't allow us to succeed. Help support the farmers and ranchers on whom the very sustenance of our lives rely. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be well. Good night.